Rebecca, welcome to the region. My name is Bill Oshmo. I'm with the Fisheries Program up here, and we're really excited about this new initiative. We have a lot of programs. You referenced one of them, the NIFHAP program and Fish Passage and so forth. When we see any of these rolled up into a budget initiative in 2014 to kind of incentivize our folks behind the AGO, we're really excited about it, and having some additional funds will go a long way.
Being a relative newcomer at the department, I'm just sort of being introduced to the intricacies and secrets of the budgeting process. So I certainly am in conversations with policy management and budget. I will also tell you that the secretary is, I mentioned a few minutes ago that he's interested in what the long-term legacy from all of this work will be, and so he is also looking at the kinds of questions that you just raised. So no promises, and I can't really even predict what the outcome will be, but there is a lot of interest and a lot of conversations going on. And it's not just, certainly not just within Fish and Wildlife Service. I mean, there are 4 bureaus that are involved in this conversation, and one of the interesting parts of all this work is working with Bureau Reclamation. And surprising to me, but there's a passion there for river restoration work. That Mike Connor, who's the Bureau Director, really sees that as the 21st century role of Bureau Reclamation and is really pushing hard on this. So I think that helps also, that it's across several different bureaus. Bureau of Land Management, another place where I've been pleasantly surprised by the level of passion for this kind of work. And certainly the Park Service as well, but I sort of expected it at the Park Service. So it's been really encouraging to see how many people think this is something worth doing.
Who else?
Good afternoon. Welcome. I'm Kenny Lowe with the Science Applications Program, and one of the hats I wear is with the chair of the North Atlantic LCC. And I've been involved in a lot of the America's Great Outdoors kind of initial coordination in this region. And I was wondering if you could help us maybe, and I know the communications are evolving, and there's lots of moving parts to America's Great Outdoors right now. And some of them that we have in northern New England are the large northern forest landscape. We have the 50 state projects, of which we have many in this region that we're lead for, and now the Blueways and now the 50 river projects. Maybe you can help us evolve an effective communication to our partners, because as you said before, the community part of this is so essential to getting things done on the ground, and a better understanding of how these parts fit together within America's Great Outdoors would be helpful as we go along. Do you have any thoughts on that today? I know it's still
Sure.
evolving, but love to hear your thoughts.
I have a few thoughts, Kenny. I'm not sure if I have a nice comprehensive answer for you, but I have a few thoughts. Maybe just start with a little story. Just you mentioned the Northern Forests LCC, and not too long ago, I was part of a conference call between the Green Mountain and White Mountain National Forests and some of the USDA people in Washington and Conti Refuge and others, and we were looking at the overlap between the Connecticut River watershed, i.e. the Conti Refuge, and the Northern Forest LCC, and part of top third of the Connecticut River watershed is in that zone. And we were having just this conversation about how not to confuse people, how not to wear them out. And what came out of that conversation, which was a combination of people on the ground and people in Washington, was an agreement that we were going to take the Upper Connecticut watershed component and integrate it into this Conti Refuge Connecticut River Watershed National Blueway element. And so, I guess I just tell that story to say we recognized it, we talked about it, we made a consensus decision, and I hope that will serve us well going forward. You know, I'm puzzled oftentimes because I see these large landscape efforts, and I think in large landscapes all the time. They're called watersheds, and so I think that this is a good, perhaps not an you know, a stated objective of this work, but the intersection between land and water. I think that's part of the contribution here. This isn't just about rivers. It's really about land and water and how those things work together. So I think that's maybe initially extra confusion, but I hope over the longer term something that makes more sense ecologically and hopefully makes more sense in terms of spending taxpayer dollars wisely. Working on a watershed basis, because that's so much of what happens in terms of water supply and pollution and stormwater and all the things that are happening on a watershed basis. And then, you know, in terms of just communicating more clearly, I think that's something we need to do. I discovered, much to my horror, that the website for America's Great Outdoors is just completely out of date, and you know, it was like it was stood up and then forgotten. So now we're working to try to rectify that, and we have, thanks to some help from people in communications, you know, just developed a map that has clickable buttons for all of 51 river projects. So we're hoping to get the information just more clearly and easily accessible. So there's a lot of, I think, a lot of recognition of the problem that you're raising, and some efforts in the right direction, and hopefully we'll you know, keep doing stakeholder outreach to explain ourselves to our partners and find ways that this really does provide value. And if it provides value, then I think we'll be in a good place.
Hi. My name is Christine Biergard. I'm here with the contracting office, but I am also on a conservation commission in my town, and there's always a lot more work to be done communicating with the public on a one-on-one basis. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on your Blue Way project, of what your local towns, how you can connect with them, and if there are grants that they can apply for, because one of our little villages is actually called Three Rivers. So it's a very valuable asset for us locally.
Christina, right? Yeah. I'm struggling a little bit to answer your question, because one of the issues that we have not nailed down yet around about the National Blue Way system is the size of the watershed that we're going to be aiming at. But we're sort of aiming at larger watersheds rather than smaller watersheds, at least right now. And so, you know, our first one was 7.2 million acres, 410-mile river. That's a big, like Huck 4, Huck 6 kind of a watershed. And if we're talking at the town level, of course, even if you're talking about a watershed, you're going to be talking about, you know, very small, I'm sure. And so right now the Blue Ways system is really designed for communities of communities, you know, watershed-wide partnerships. So I think that initially, at least, you know, the goals are going to be to bring many communities together to create a vision for what that watershed, how that watershed can be more resilient, and hopefully the benefits then to the communities like the ones you're talking about in terms of better protection from floods and droughts and cleaner water and higher quality outdoor space and recreation, and then that breeds hopefully jobs and tourism. I mean, it'll be, I think, probably pretty indirect, at least in its first iteration for a smaller community. But we are, I mean, one of the things that Reclamation suggested to us, there's a program called Cooperative Watershed Management Program. Right now it's just a reclamation program, but it gives out small grants at the community level for communities that want to get into watershed planning. And, you know, given that it's reclamation right now, it's only available in the West. But we're hoping that this is an idea that might get picked up and made nationwide. And that would be, you know, small $5,000, $10,000 grants to communities that want to start thinking about their river in a watershed way. So stay tuned. I hope there will be something for your size community in the future.
Hi, Rebecca. We have a great field audience today. There's probably at least 40 folks out there at a minimum, and one of them has a question for you. I was wondering what the biggest challenging aspect of river restoration would be. What's your biggest challenging aspect of river restoration?
Biggest challenging... You know, I guess it's resources. There's so much interest, I think, in river restoration, and really a lot of ability to do it at so many different levels. So I think it's just the fact that we're short on resources. In answering the question, I come back to the permit point that we were talking about earlier. Oh, I've got one, thanks. Maybe Wendy would like it. And the fact that we oftentimes, you know, take a step forward and then 2 steps back when we're trying to solve a problem with in a hurry. I'm thinking about the work that's being done up here after Hurricane or Tropical Storm Irene, and there are very few dollars to fix these road crossings, but you know, we're fixing them too often in a way that's just going to fail again. And in an era with very limited resources at every level, from federal down to the local government, to use those dollars in a way that isn't going to stand the test of time just seems tragic. And so I think just finding the resources to do the job is certainly no shortage of people who love rivers, who want to get involved in this work. There's a lot of knowledge, and it's growing all the time. I mean, we have a lot of things going for us, but we're probably most limited by resources.
Any other questions? Comments?